Hello, everyone. Welcome to a live show today to discuss the Hugo Awards. My name is Nicole, and this is my channel. And we have a whole big group of people here to chat today, and we'll be talking about Hugo nominations, which were in the last week of, and just other general things. And so I'll let. Whoa. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that or not, but I had. Oh no, you didn't, because I had. Sorry, I got audio accidentally playing. My bad. And it confused me really badly. Yeah, so if everybody else wants to go ahead and introduce themselves, that would.
You were doing fine. I mean, from our perspective, anyway.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm from Common Touch of Fantasy. I'm just the average Joe type of fantasy reader. I mostly read epic fantasy. I'm the guy that, you'll probably see in Barnes & Noble getting the new Malazan book or new Sanderson book. So, yeah.
I'll go next. I'll leap in. My name is Rachel, and we read science fiction and fantasy, and now a boatload of speculative short fiction, too.
Hi, my channel is Kitty G, and my name is Caitlin. Awkward, I know. But I read mostly fantasy. I have been getting more into science fiction recently, and definitely into short fiction recently as well, much like Rachel.
Hi, I'm Thomas. My channel is SFF 180.
Hi,
short and sweet.
Hi, I'm Bree. My channel is Stories from the Shelf. I read a lot of sci-fi and pop around here and there on live shows saying hi to folks.
Hi, I'm Claire. My channel's Claire Russo, and I read a lot of sci-fi, fantasy, more comics recently, and I get way too excited about the Hugos.
I'm Elizabeth. My channel is Books and Pieces. If I disappear, I've probably gone to throw up because I just ate something and it made me feel really sick.
It's good.
This is what you always wanted to know,
And that's everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. So I guess we'll get started. Okay. First of all, I had a thought while we were going live. Does anyone know when the announcement of the nominees is going to be? Because normally it would be this weekend, which is Easter weekend, but they have the nomination window open a little bit longer this year than normal, I think, and also Easter happened early this year, so it's not happening on Easter weekend. Does anyone know when the nominees are announced? Or?
They didn't officially announce it back when they said when the nomination period was. So it just said April, May, I think. Maybe May, even.
No, nominations are closing on the 31st of this
and
month,
then
so
approximately a month to
something like
tally.
that. Yeah. I would expect to have them at least by Nebula weekend, which I think is the first weekend in May.
Okay.
So that would just be a rough guess.
Maybe they'll try and pair it with the Nebula weekend. That would be interesting.
Yeah, well, it's normally at EasterCon, but obviously early this year.
Yeah.
Voting is set to start in early May, so I'm going to guess about a month later they'll announce it.
I'm looking at the FAQ on the website, and it doesn't look like it says.
Yeah.
They have to wait until we do our BooktubeSFF live show, and then they'll make the announcement.
So, actually, Nebula weekend is the second weekend in May, so we may get the Hugo shortlist before then.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that's in the progress report they sent out is that it would be in April/May. So it's a mystery.
Huh, that's interesting. Okay. I guess there is no answer. It just occurred to me I didn't know, and I thought there would be an answer, and there isn't. Yeah, or well, there isn't a definitive answer. Okay, so I guess, I don't know. What do you guys want to talk about? How's everyone doing on their nomination process? How about that? Or like, what's your process been for nominating? For me, I just went through and filled out the ballot, and then if I read something that I liked better than something that I put on there already, I go back and I change it. That's my entire process.
My process goes something like get the thing and then go, oh, I must do that, and then completely forget about it until like 2 days before, and then go, oh, damn, and then like desperately try and do it. So this live show is gonna remind me. So.
Yeah, I filled out a first draft of the ballot or something a couple days ago, but it just kind of felt like a wacky scramble to get things. I felt like I forgot a lot of things that happened last year.
Yeah, I'm procrastinating terribly, which I'm very good at. I'm just across the board procrastination. But a lot of it, every year I feel like I'm grossly underread in the previous year's works, which is kind of a bad thing to admit to if you're trying to be a genre critic. But I think I have a fairly good idea of what I'm going to go with. I only have a few days to really make my mind up on it. But there's I've been paying attention to other shortlists like the Nebulas, the PKDs, and seeing what is the Kitschies, seeing what's being looked at in some of the other awards, and it's interesting. This could be a year in which there is a little more overlap than usual between the Hugos and the Nebulas, because there are some reasonably popular books just among the SF reading public, as well as among like writers and judging their peers, as it were. And I think that quite a few books like Fifth Season and Grace of Kings and Uprooted and Ancillary Mercy were all ones that the community at large were really talking about, and so those could stand to be those could stand a really good chance of being recognized. But then you never really know. I don't think we haven't had too many years lately where there's been a whole lot of parity between Hugos and Nebulas, so it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Did they just release was it the Philip K. Dick this week that they talked about the shortlist?
Philip K. Dick winners have just been announced. Yeah.
I knew I was behind on something.
And the SFA just happened, right?
Yeah, just like a couple hours ago. And was it the Aurealis last night? Or?
Aurealis has already been chosen, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and that went to Illuminae, interestingly.
That was their best science fiction. So
yeah.
Their best fantasy was something completely different.
Oh, that's right. They split them up between two.
They have a lot of categories. Best fantasy was Day Boy by Trent Jameson, and best sci-fi was Illuminae.
Okay.
And best horror. Oh no, Oh, Day Boy won both best horror and best fantasy, so it's clearly.
Yeah, I saw that. I meant to look that up. I've never even heard of that book.
No, not me.
What was it called?
Day Boy.
Dayboy?
Yeah.
By Trent Jameson?
Yeah, I know who Trent Jameson is, but...
Well, now I'm going to look at it. It only has 65
pause while
we're all going to look at it.
Yeah.
Everyone scrambles to Google.
It has 65 ratings.
Yeah, it only has 65 ratings on Goodreads.
That's crazy.
I wonder...
Well, I mean, it may not, if it hasn't been released in the US, UK.
Yeah, it might. Yeah.
Majority of Goodreads readership there, so that's kind of...
I was just about to...
Well, sometimes one award kind of influences what people read for another. I wasn't planning on reading Updraft, and then I saw it on the Nebula list, and I thought, oh well, let's get the book before let's get the book as soon as possible.
Have you read that one, Updraft? I keep debating about it. I don't know. I've heard really mixed things about that, about Updraft. So I was like,
it's one I need to catch up on. So, yeah.
One of my favorite booktubers, Rachel, actually read that. And I saw her review of it, and I was like, this is just not the book for me. Just based off of her review, you know?
Yeah, I didn't like that book, which is sad because I think it made history. It's the first book to be nominated for the Best Novel category in the Nebula Awards and whatever YA award.
Andre Norton.
Yeah, the Andre Norton. Yeah.
I didn't mind it. I read it a while back and thought it was. I can see a younger version of me really, really liking it and having really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
But as it was, I found it likable enough.
Yeah, I heard an interview with the author, and she was saying that it was kind of on that fence where she had to talk to her publisher about whether to publish it as YA or adult. Mm-hmm. So I guess it kind of could go either way. But yeah, I wasn't planning on it, but I'll definitely read it if it's good enough for that kind of nod.
In case anyone's wondering, Day Boy is a new take on the vampire mythos. So.
It also, I looked it up on Amazon, and it looks like it has an Australian publisher that's selling an e-copy here in the U.S., but it doesn't have a physical book, so that makes me think there's probably some, because sometimes with Australian releases in particular, they'll be able to sell the e-copy in the U.S., like the Australian publisher will be able to sell the e-copy in the U.S., but not a physical edition, so that makes me think there's not actually a U.S. publisher associated with it.
Yeah,
same in the UK.
Take on vampires.
Kindle edition.
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
If you really want to read it, you can get the US ebook is like $16 right now, and I think it's on sale. Wow. Yeah, it's $16 on sale. It's $29.99 list price for the Kindle edition.
Still so expensive.
That's all the noobs right there. Especially for something about vampires, no.
Yeah.
Vampires.
I better get a baby kangaroo with that.
Yeah. It needs to be delivered by an actual kangaroo. It shows up at your door, knock, knock. You take it out of a little pouch, and.
Well, maybe now
you say thank you, kangaroo.
It might get a better release.
It might get
delivered by a kangaroo with a kangaroo.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, fresh take on the vampire mythos sort of turned me off right there. I'm afraid I have a long-standing policy of NFV, which you can probably work out for yourself. So. Just not for me.
Did Aliette Bedard, she won twice in the BSFA awards, didn't she?
Yeah. Which, considering there are only 4 categories, is quite the thing. Yeah, she won the best short fiction and best novel.
She's been winning and read that story
for a long time.
Does she write under a pseudonym?
Nope.
No. I don't think so.
The short fiction was from Clark's World, and then the novel was House of Shattered Wings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at it's bsfa.co.uk, which should be the site, and it's listing the award winners as novel Her House of Shattered Wings. Is that last year?
No. If it's House of Shattered Wings, that's the winner.
Yeah, and it's got the best short fiction as The Honey Trap by Ruth E.J. Booth.
That was last year.
Okay, so that just hasn't.
No, this year it's
happened like an hour ago. So.
3 Cups of Grief by Starlight from Clark's World.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody's probably still at the bar at the end. They have a very fine real ale bar at EasterCon.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds worth going.
So.
I thought 3 Cups of Grief was really fantastic. I read it whenever that Clark's World came out, which must have been the beginning of the year last year, and it was really very beautiful. It's her. She's got like a wider universe of short fiction that she does like lots of different, slightly vaguely connected stories in, and that's one of those, and it's really nice.
You linked it earlier on Twitter, didn't you? Because I bookmarked it, and I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna read that."
Yeah.
That's my read for tonight, I think.
Go onto her website, she's got a list of all the different short stories from that universe, so you can read them and get a better idea. It's like live.
Is it one of the ones where you have to read it in order, or just like you can just dip in wherever?
You'll get the gist.
Okay. That makes me more excited to read it, actually, hearing that there's
Yeah.
like a...
It's just nice that there's more. There's more.
Yeah.
They're not in order or anything. It's just stories from a universe.
That sounds cool. We'll look into it. I haven't actually read any Boddard yet either, so good place to start, maybe.
Yeah, Angela Slatter, she does something similar where she based all her short stories and novellas kind of in the same world. And like Of Sorrow and Such, which was one of my favorite novellas from last year.
Mm-hmm.
That was fantastic. And she does kind of the same thing. She has everything related.
I
didn't
think
know
I've got a
that, but I
book of
really
her
like
shorts.
Sorry?
I didn't know that Angela Slatter did that, but I read Of Sorrow and Such and really liked it.
I think she has a collection of stories called Sourdough something that's the world it's from. And I think it's the collection that won the World Fantasy Award. So.
What do you guys think about Tor.com kind of being the go-to place now for novellas and novella nominations? Do you think that this is something that people are going to do like other publishers? Do you think this is just what they're going to do, or what do you guys think about that?
I think it's a huge inspiration. I think it's kind of revitalized people's interest in novellas. They make it so much more accessible. You don't have to subscribe to a magazine and just hope to catch one. They're really putting their weight behind them, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely done that for me, where it was a question of like not really knowing where it was going to be, where to find the short fiction. So I've already bought like 5 of them, which
And they're all so good.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I think that it's been a wonderful thing, and and they're bringing new talent into the field this way, which has been wonderful. I haven't liked everything I've read, but I still have a lot of catching up to do. And even in the ones that I haven't really liked, I'm sure there's an audience for this, and I'm glad that it's available. And it is a way for newer writers to get their feet wet. I've too often read debut novels by writers where I'm like, this person isn't quite ready. They need to do a bit more in the short fiction field, and this is a great opportunity for that. So.
And also it's helping other like small publishers who have been doing novellas for a long time. They never stopped, sort of thing. So people are interested in the form, and then they can go and find them elsewhere if you like it. When you find them at Tor have put that like marketing heft behind it and got the interest going. Whereas before it was I guess it was much more niche. You'd have to be more into a specific publisher or a specific author and hunt for everything by them.
So, can I 2 quick things? One is a technical thing. Apparently you can't post links in the little sidebar based on the way my settings are for that. And I don't know how to change that. I was just looking at it real quick and I don't know how to change it. So I apologize for that, but if you post a comment with a link in it, it's not going to show up.
Yeah, it's a perfectly sensible thing I should have thought of that, to avoid spam.
It's just like the default. That's what's said on mine, and I don't know how to change it. I was just looking. But then, sorry, my other thought was about novellas, and what you guys were saying. I think what Tor.com did was good, but I also think novellas have been growing a lot in recent years because it's a way for authors to like continue writing in a world. And to like keep interest up in a world in between, especially in like the epic fantasy or something where you have a 1,000-page book, you can put out a 80-page novella and keep people interested. Or maybe you don't have like this year I read Penrick's Demon by Louise McMaster Bujold, which is in her World of the Five Gods world, Realm of the Five Gods world. I forget what that's called, and that was a good way for her to revisit that without writing an entirely new novel, because she hasn't put out a new novel in that world in a while. So I think it was a good way to revisit that world without as much of quite as much effort, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for ages that was the only way I'd ever read novellas, was like if they were a continuation in a series that I already liked. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll read that. But that was the only way I ever read them for ages. And then when I discovered that Tor did them, I was like, right, I'm going to buy all of these past anthologies that Tor's got. I'm also then going to go and subscribe to Clark's World and Uncanny and all of this. When I discovered that these things existed, I was like, right, I'm on this. And now I've subscribed to loads, so I'm on it for this year. So next year, when it comes to nominating, I will be set.
Well, see, that's great. That's how you hope everyone would do it, right? You know, it's because I've noticed this phenomenon of novellas that are appearing as sort of like, you know, bridging stories between book 1 and book 2 of some series, and that's going on in YA a lot, especially. I've noticed a quick novella in this little, and my hope has always been, well, that's fine, but is it just going to be a thing that only gets the fans of that series reading that novella and not really branching out and developing this, you know, interest in short fiction generally? I guess, you know, Caitlin. See, everyone just needs to think like Caitlin.
I think
I
most
was
people
like
do.
one of those people for ages who was like, oh, they don't even publish short fiction that isn't part of a series already. Like, I just didn't think it was a thing for ages. And then I started hearing people on BookTube talking about short fiction magazines, namely Elizabeth with hers, recommending some last year, I think, and I was like, oh, okay, I better get on this. I better start like reading some of this other stuff out there, and it's been really good. I think it's a great way to discover new authors, like, fantastic way.
Yeah.
And I think that Elizabeth and I always want to talk at the same time. I think that the length of a novella is really right for most people. Like, you get home, you only have so much time, and the length of a novella is like just enough to keep you busy for the night, but not so much that you have to invest like your whole week into it. That's one of the things I've been really enjoying about them.
Yeah, you can always
I really want small books to just come back in, because I've just pulled some books off the shelf, right? Here are 4 books from my dead white guy corner. This is like old classic sci-fi. Right. I just like picked 4. Okay, and then here are 4 from my like new. The size of them. Like, I want to carry a book to work or read in bed. Like, these are tiny. They're like 150 pages each, and that's a legit novel. Well, that's C.S. Lewis. That's maybe not quite so legit.
We'll just say in principle, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a legit novel. Like, but it's tiny. And I know there's differences in printing size and all that, but that's 128 pages.
Now, for the longest time, that was just an editorial, stricture. Editors would require. I remember going the very first conventions I would go to, and I'd sit on these panels or observe these panels where writers were just bitterly complaining that they had these strict length restrictions, and publishers wanted novels by like non-A-list writers. If you weren't Heinlein or Clark or somebody like that, they wanted you to turn in something that was around, that could be 175 to 200 page paperback, expressly for the reason that it was easier for chain bookstores to fit more copies on the shelves at that length. And so naturally, that's the kind of thing that writers who want to create and express themselves sort of felt really shackled by. But if you read a lot of that great old SF. There were books that were, the writers were required to get their business done, get in, get the job done, get out, be very efficient, really, and so you would get these smoothly flowing storytelling beats, right, that would just propel you through the narrative.
There's an Ursula Le Guin story that I really love, and it's like 104 pages or something, and I cannot believe how much she gets in there. It's basically Game of Thrones, the whole thing. In 100 pages. And it's like, have a lesson right there.
See, I'm all about the big old bricks that are like under my house. Ready to And I'm all about wanting to know how many threads were in each dress and everything else.
I love that too, though. What I want is both. I want
a balance.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, but it's interesting to see how kind of some of that you can trace to like just how publishing has evolved and how it became cheaper to print bigger books, so they did, and now you have the internet and it's easier to just get stuff that's serialized or that's shorter. It's less of a requirement to have stuff looking the right way on a shelf in the bookstore, and Just
Right.
Though my
And-
favorite theory of it is that a bunch of writers now have word processors and they don't have to type it out by hand.
yeah.
Sit and say it all.
There was
Just have some AI bot that just sort of like
Yeah.
creates an epic
Seriously?
fantasy.
Dictate to
It's
the
like
AI.
Mad Libs, right? You just sort of plug certain things in and it auto-generates the story for you.
seriously in Japan, some program just won an award.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I was like, what? Are you serious? I want to read that.
Yeah, it nearly won like a major literary award because it wrote a literary fiction novel.
It nearly won.
I think they disqualified it because it wasn't a human.
Well, like the West is losing at, robotics because Google has just made a robot for Twitter,
Yeah.
which they had to take down in 2 days because it absorbed the worst of trolling of Twitter and
Wow.
became a terrible, terrible person in 2 days.
That's
They
about
just
right.
had to kill it. Whereas in Japan, they made a robot that wrote a fiction novel that was just apparently very good.
That's like, so a friend of mine on Facebook posted that story about the Twitter bot you were just talking about, and he was like, did we learn nothing from Bodie McBoatface? Which is...
Bodie McBoatface is beautiful.
Bodie McBoatface
that's
is a lesson in British whimsy. That is whimsy. That is not evil.
Yes, that's...
It's the beautiful, pure spirit of childhood. And
Yeah,
being
British-
The best thing about Bodie McBoatface is if the name wins and sticks and has to be... The Queen has to christen the boat. Bodie McBoatface and make a bottle on it.
I have no idea what you guys are talking
Okay,
about.
so for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's a research vessel, there's a UK research vessel, and they had a online naming contest, like NASA does for the Spirit and Opportunity and all those things. And right now, the one that's winning by a lot is Bodie McBoatface.
It's beautiful.
Well, the one I really liked was "It's Bloody Cold Here." I thought. But yeah.
All right, so back on track.
So who is writing in Bodie McBoatface on the Hugo nomination ballot?
Best related work. I've heard that.
That's related work. Oh my god.
I've heard you put whatever you want for best related work. So.
There are actual rules. There are actual rules. They're just very vague.
Yeah.
Oh
But I
well.
think the best related works is just it can't fit in any other category.
Yes, so that's something we were talking about before we went live, was what do, especially, we're on YouTube and everything, what do things like on YouTube or on Twitch or all of this stuff, what would those things count as in the Hugo nomination process?
Well,
And-
probably best related work because that's what a lot of podcasts come under, isn't it?
YouTube would count as best fan cast, I
Yeah,
believe.
that's what I was thinking. Fancast.
Unless it was about writing rather than about science fiction and fantasy,
Yeah, fair enough.
or similar, or if it was a non-fiction about science fiction, like the history or something, you could put it under best related work, or maybe.
Hey, did
but
you do
otherwise
that
it'd go
series in
fan cast.
2015?
That was last year.
Oh well.
Not eligible. Although technically we are all eligible for best fan cast. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah, just where
Elizabeth really wants your votes, is what she's saying.
not a slate, not a slate.
I'll pull a game
Not
and
a
say
slate.
you don't have to do me.
Yeah, I think there's a stipulation in the podcast things that video casts count, so it's already in there.
That's cool.
Yeah. But then we were also talking about a Twitch stream before we went live, and is gaming, what is gaming? If you're playing
Yeah,
things.
I was talking about Critical Role, the D&D campaign that a bunch of people do, voice actors, and I absolutely love it. I think it's the most entertaining thing ever. And if I was nominating, I would nominate that as best related work because it's fantastic. So.
With the Hugos, it just really depends, if there's a swell of people voting for a thing, right? Because there was that one time a couple years ago where was it Jose Garcia who won a thing, and his speech was funny, so the next year everybody nominated his speech because they were talking about it as a joke in the bar after the awards. Like, oh, let's nominate that, and then the next year it was actually on the ballot being nominated for best related work, like just because he was like really emotional when he gave his speech.
I'll nominate Connie Willis' speech last year. That was hilarious.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Well,
Do we want to go through some categories then for Hugo nominees, and like as we're on the related works?
Oh man.
Sure. Do you want to? The only thing I remember that I wrote down for best related work was Felicia Day's memoir, because I was pretty sure that belonged on here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I really liked it.
that will probably do fairly well, I think. The final voting.
Definitely.
That's the only thing I remember. I know I put in other things, I just don't remember what they were right now. I could go look, but that's a lot of work.
Did that Leonard Nimoy documentary come out this year?
That is a question.
Because that would be one I would suspect, if it was eligible, would do pretty well.
I haven't seen it anywhere, but I don't
Which
know when it
document?
came
I
out.
missed the title. I missed what?
All I remember is it's one that was run originally as a Kickstarter campaign, which there's one right now.
You mean the Ursula Le Guin document?
No, the Ursula Le Guin one I'm super excited for, but that's not out yet.
No,
but they had a similar one for Leonard Nimoy.
Oh. I don't know if that's been released, Stephen. So yet.
Yeah.
So probably not.
Expected in 2016. So.
Okay.
If I'm looking at the right thing, it doesn't look like it's been released yet. Which is it's possible I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah, I imagine Queers Destroy Science Fiction will get a nomination for that.
Yeah, I got that on mine.
Because they won it for last year, didn't they? For the what was it last year? Women Destroy Science Fiction.
That's been a really. Women and Queers Destroy Science Fiction. That's 2 anthologies, not 1.
No, didn't they win last year? Lightspeed won. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because I think that's when I first heard about them.
Yeah.
Okay. I love Lightspeed. It's one of my favorite websites to go to as far as new fiction, short fiction. It's fantastic. They run Nightmare too, and I love Nightmare. Nightmare's fantastic.
I'm too scared to subscribe to that one.
I think if there's a comment that last year Queers Destroy Science Fiction was the one that won.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Queers Destroy. Oh, so maybe it won't be.
I saw it on the list of stuff that was eligible, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
Maybe she means last year they released Queers Destroy Science Fiction, because that was definitely, last year. Released.
Yeah, last year was released. Okay, sorry.
So it's eligible to win this year.
Yeah.
That's been such a good series of stuff that Lightspeed's done.
Yeah,
what about...
in case anyone isn't aware of what it is, Lightspeed magazine every year they kickstart an anthology for different groups of people. So it was Women Destroy Science Fiction, then it was Queers Destroy Science Fiction, and then they just didn't they? Authors of Color Destroy Science Fiction.
Yeah, I backed that one.
Yeah.
Nisi Shaw's going to do the editing on that one, I think.
That's exciting.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool. More original anthologies to keep up with. That's it's a very exciting and vital area of SFF publishing right now. Probably the most vital.
Why do you say that?
Because there is so much opportunity now to bring in these new writers and new voices and new perspectives and boost that diversity. That's what and it's the best way to do it through these high-profile, kickstarted collections and anthologies that like put them all in that get a lot of buzz on social media and that just bring all these people to readers' attention.
Yeah, because a lot of us we want to do better, but it's really difficult to find people unless there's here, look there, and then you have no excuse, because you can look and it's an anthology. There'll be stuff you don't like, there'll be stuff you like, and then you can go from there and pick from these 5 authors I really like, go and read more of their stuff.
Well, and especially considering how few calls for open manuscript submissions are happening right now, it's going to be a lot easier to get in through short fiction than through novels.
All right. What about the Campbell Award? Let's do that. That's always interesting. The John W. Campbell Award, the not a Hugo Award.
I want to put out 2 for that category that I think a lot of people are going to be excited about.
I already know who you're doing, I think.
Yeah, Becky Chambers is still eligible, and I believe it's Andy Weir's last year of eligibility.
Yeah.
I love that we can just sneak them in. It's like they're not eligible in one category, but damn it, they will win.
It's really interesting to me that Weir and then Becky Chambers, neither of them has been eligible for the novel award because they were originally self-published. That's one of the areas that I'm really big on thinking that we need to look at the rules for that, if only because it takes longer. I'm sorry?
Interesting, because the reason they're not eligible is because the Hugos accept self-published novels.
Right.
So because they're accepting of self-publishing as a legitimate form of publishing, then you can no longer be re-eligible if you're republished.
So conversely, because the Campbell Award doesn't count self-published novels because they're not a paying market at a professional rate, they have a better shot.
Yeah.
Which, it would sound kind of weird to...
Yeah, because if the Hugos didn't accept self-published, that would be a huge controversy. But
right.
then it knocks them out for when they come back out with a big publishing house.
Yeah, because the sad truth is that, even to whatever degree you do well in self-publishing, most people are still going to see and discover your book and read your book if you are traditionally published. And so, to whatever degree Andy Weir impressed people in, back 5 years ago when he first did it wasn't until, the last 18 months that The Martian blew up. And then by that time, now you could probably say, well, okay, he didn't get a Hugo, but he had this, $500 million gross movie, so it's like that's kind of a nice compensation. So that's fair. But it's I did notice that on the PKD shortlist, there were 2 self-published titles. And the PKD has always been a little bit more kind of small press, off the beaten path friendly. It seems like the judges for that award really kind of seek out, just works that are underappreciated.
Well, it's also because of their format. Like, to be eligible, I believe you have to be originally published in paperback.
Yeah, there's that.
So, like, most of the big, hardcover new releases don't end up being eligible for the PKD. So it's partially because that's what they want to do with the award, but it's also because that's, the way the award is structured.
Yeah,
but that's made it easier, I think, to recognize, self-publishers now. A lot of people are still just self-publishing electronically, but there's still these options to do it where you can have a paperback version of your book as well, and I think that that makes it a little bit easier.
But the Hugos do recognize that there are some things that just don't give you as much exposure, because there's things that are eligible this year which were published first in 2013, 2014 in the UK, because they get first publication in the US in 2015, they're eligible this year, because we understand as a group as a fandom that it's just not the same reach if you've been published only in the UK or only in Australia.
Or in another language.
Okay, but it makes me wonder if maybe we should have some sort of extended eligibility for self-published works, because the nature of them is that you don't have a marketing team, you don't have a blog outreach. So your book's just not going to get picked up as much. And that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately, if that makes
It's
sense.
certainly something that could go into a suggestion for the future. I think people would be quite amenable to that, because if we can have the extra eligibility criteria for country and language, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know though. Okay, so talking about the extra eligibility criteria, I don't know how useful some of those are because I can't think of that many. Like, there's the high-profile example of The Martian for self-publishing, but for like works in translation or works that were published in the UK first and then in the US, I don't know that there are that many works that end up making it onto the nomination ballot. Like, I feel like if you get published in the UK and then a year later in the US, you're kind of just screwed no matter what, because half of the marketing happened one year and half of the marketing happened in another year, and so the audience, there might be some level of audience confusion, and it's also that like you just don't have that sort of concerted push that would be very helpful to get a book really recognized.
I think in the wider world, maybe it is. Maybe in our little online world, we're a bit more aware of what's coming out in other countries. Maybe.
I don't know. Like maybe like pre-internet, but I feel like with the internet, like if I hear of a book anywhere that I know I want, if it's if it's only available in the UK, I can always go and buy it. Like it's not like there's not a huge barrier to me to go buy something in the UK. So I feel like it's not quite as, I feel like having that double eligibility isn't quite as effective as you'd want it to be. There still ends up being a problem for a work that has that happen.
Well, I think what's happening is just that the world of publishing and the technology that enables publishing is changing so rapidly, and so it's natural that like these awards, these long-standing awards, are going to do their best to catch up, and you have to really think hard about if there's a new normal out there, how do we kind of adjust our rules and maintain the same kind of fairness that we've tried to have all along. With the process, and so I can understand why if the Hugos are kind of maybe lagging behind, the people's reading practices and the way in which it's easier for anybody to find out about global science fiction, which to be honest, still really isn't that easy, right? I mean, none of us had heard of the Trent Jameson book until so So there is still like these big gulfs that exist around the world where of just people's awareness if you're in the U.S. or the U.K. and what's going on elsewhere. So but it's not surprising me that it's still something that is unresolved. But like Elizabeth said, I mean these are all valid kind of suggestions for discussion and how how the community can get together and help the award evolve and stay relevant.
Also, our perspective as a bunch of people from the UK and the US, perhaps not the same as if we were from another English-speaking, like, publishing country that was neither of those. Like, the publishing industries in Australia and New Zealand, South Africa, like, they're significantly smaller and will get much, much less press, but would count as an English language release.
And it's really surprising when you look at the actual figures how few people from the UK have won the Hugo when you look at the history, like I think Lee Harris was the first editor and to win the Hugo, and that's when the Worldcon was in London, and so all of us had memberships to
I think what we're hinting at is probably an ongoing criticism of the Hugos and Worldcon, that it's not really a Worldcon. It's the market is still pretty heavily focused in the U.S. and most of them take place in the U.S. And even because when LoneCon happened, obviously that changed the voting dynamic quite a bit because there were a lot more people from Europe attending, and that's an ongoing issue, I think.
That's why I think Helsinki would be interesting.
That's going to be really good.
That would be a fun one to attend.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? You guys are mentioning editors and like there's the best editor Hugo nomination. How do you guys go about learning about editors and just trying to figure out like who's your favorite editor, things like that? Because I have no idea what to do.
One that you only get to know, I think, when you get really involved in like knowing what's coming out and who's commissioning what. Like you have to be so interested in the industry to see who's commissioning what works and who's editing. So like I know Caitlin and I both know like lots more about like Hot Escape and Glance and stuff and who's working there than I would about anyone anywhere else, just because of where they are.
I personally just like went and looked up the editors on books that I really enjoyed that came out this year. That's the way that I nominated, which I was just like, I liked this book, I liked this book. I didn't like this book quite as much, but I think it did really interesting things with its layout and everything, and that's probably a lot of editor input, and so I just like went and looked up who those people were.
Also, it's worth looking up who the commissioning editors are for like short fiction sites, so like Tor.com, who commissioned what is listed on each short story. So if you really like it, you know, somebody's doing a good job at picking that out of the pile.
And if you do conventions, you know, with any sort of regularity, you know, editors are having more and more of a presence at conventions. You know, a lot of the literary conventions, at least around the U.S., you know, now have an editor GOH. And it's always fascinating to and they're super approachable people, and especially in the bar after, you know, the panels are all done. And so yeah, it's I think it's becoming something that perhaps readers are being more aware of. A good way to find out, of course, is to just look at the acknowledgments in any novel. Your favorite novel right now. Writers these days, it's like the thing is to write your acknowledgments like it's an Oscar acceptance speech. And
A lot of them
you can find out like everybody next to my mom and the lady who cleaned up after me at daycare and all of this. And they eventually get to the editors, and then they say, here's my U.S. editor and my U.K. editor, and then the editor's assistant, and then the guy who designed the cover, and then the guy who fired him and got the other guy to design the cover. And so you can learn all these names and figure out who's kind of behind the scenes of it, because there is a whole lot that goes on behind just getting your favorite book into your lap, and it's actually interesting to learn about if you want to find out about that bit of the business.
And if
It is something I wish was more common.
One publishing house, if you keep finding books and you keep loving them and they're from one publishing house, go and look up who those editors are, because you obviously enjoy their taste. And they're doing a damn good job.
Cool, thanks.
And they all have Twitter feeds and
they do.
Another thing. If you like
hugely entertaining.
If you look at the acknowledgments of a book and see the editor, and then you're like, what else have they done? Just go look at their Twitter feed, and you'll find out.
There is an entire Twitter account. This is kind of an aside. That's short. It's run by short fiction editors about the short fiction that they've been reading. And I'll try and figure out if I can find the link to that. But that, I would imagine, is a decent way to tap into who's editing what as well.
Do you know what we should nominate for like best related works? It should be specific people's Twitter feeds.
That would be amazing.
Oh my god, I would totally nominate like emo Caroline.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
Someone mentioned nominating the live tweeting that Sarah Galley at Gallifrey did. So she watched Star Wars for the first time, all of them, drinking. It was amazing.
I would nominate.
And beautiful.
I would nominate Magical Realism Bot.
Oh yeah, I like Magical Realism Bot too.
And I might nominate Chaucer Doth Tweet.
Yeah, I like Awful Fantasy. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Also, Riker Googling is my favorite fan.
Yeah. There's a great Tumblr as well that could go in best related work of WTF bad fantasy covers.
Oh god, I can just imagine. So many.
Wasn't there a nomination a few years ago for there's a writer who's been doing these fantasy covers where he just switches men and women on them, and it's ridiculous because this like guy in his 40s with a beard, like trying to like just like contort himself to look like a babe on an old-fashioned sci-fi cover.
Isn't that Jim C. Hines?
Linking, yes, that's Jim Hines. Thank you.
He won a fan writer Hugo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So someone mentioned in the chat about artists, pro artists and fan artists, and how do you find those? For pro artists, again, I just like looked at covers that I like. I just like looked at what covers that I liked and then looked up who the cover artist was. Fan artists, I don't remember who I put. I know I put a couple people who I'm like personally friends with who are like artists as a job, but they also do fan art. But I don't know how other people decide that.
I want everybody to nominate Matt Olson, who does my thumbnails.
Yeah.
Because he's amazing, and he has like his own DeviantArt, and he's had art appear on IO9, and he's fantastic. I mean, I think he should be doing like actually he almost did. There was a Star Wars fan film that he was doing the concept art for that did not end up successfully getting kickstarted, but his paintings alone were just anything that you would see from Lucasfilm. So I think he's brilliant, and want him to get more exposure, definitely.
Yeah, fan art's a difficult one unless people who are active on DeviantArt and things find there's a active conversation going on there. But for the rest of us, I don't know. It's stuff I see on Tumblr I nominate.
Yeah, I was gonna say there are a couple of 2015 eligible Hugo Art Tumblrs that have pro and fan art categories, and they've been really active in the last couple of months. So that's where I found most of my fan art ones.
I've only got Amy Mebison on mine at the moment for fan artists, and she does like this hilarious comics about just modern day Disney princesses, which is kind of it's just adorable. But it's something that I've known about for a few years, and I keep putting her on because she keeps doing good work. But
I always put Julie Dillon just because I always like her covers. She does nice stuff.
It can be tricky to figure out, though, who's eligible for what if somebody gets a professional contract, though, right? If you get a professional contract and you've been doing fan art, are you still eligible for fan art, for the fan art that you have done?
You are.
Oh, God.
I think you are.
You should be if you've been doing fan art in the year.
In the year, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's something like 4 or 5 pieces of art or something. There's a down limit, I think. It's bit difficult because also if you nominate in the wrong category, the committee doesn't go and like fix it for you. So
but I think it should not be a problem.
Yeah,
because there have been a great many like long-standing professional SF writers who have gotten fan writer nominations for a particular thing.
Just check the rules on the Hugo website, and then like check with the artist is usually the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
And say, do you fit this criteria? And they'll usually tell you.
So it says, I'm looking at it now, an artist or cartoonist whose work has appeared through publication in semi-prozines or fanzines or through other public, non-professional display during the previous calendar year. So like anything that went up on DeviantArt, if they put something up, they would be eligible. Okay.
Yeah, and on semi-prozines means they could still have been paid for it. But it only produces a small amount of money, sort of thing, not pro rates.
Yeah.
So who did you guys put in as professional artists? Did you just go by cover? Because that's what I did.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I would have to go back and look.
And the art that comes, so if you go on Tor.com, on Uncanny, or any of those short fiction sites, there's usually a picture for the whole thing or pictures interspersed. And those artists also classify. I always look those guys up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I nominated Julie Dillon because of her work on Uncanny and Clark's World. And Victo Knight, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She's done stuff for Tor.com, like The Pauper Princes. That's a really popular novel this year. She did the art for that. I'm just in love with her stuff.
Is that the girl you tweeted out yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah, I looked at that. That was breathtaking. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm. And David Palumbo for Benti. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a hell of a cover. You know.
Yeah.
I liked Cynthia Shepherd. I thought The Drowning Eyes
Yeah.
was an amazing cover.
For Karen Memory.
And
And
Karen.
Karen Memory as well, yes.
Yep.
Who did the cover for Trader Borrow Cormorant?
I would have to dig my copy out and look, but that's definitely that was a fantastic cover, and I
You mean the nice one that actually
Yeah.
yeah.
Not that one.
Yeah,
Not the UK one. No.
the
Not that
version
one.
that used the proper title and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was very nice.
So yeah, I mean, because like an iconic image that just fit the theme
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah.
else.
So perfectly.
The layout was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Samuel Weber.
Okay.
Anywhere.
I think so.
I like him.
Who did Cameron Hurley's?
Richard
Book cover.
Anderson.
Mhm.
I'm saying that because I've got my ballot open.
The Mirror Empire and the one that came after that. I've forgotten her name.
Holy
Empire
shit! How about that
Ascendant.
cover for Stars Are Legion? That saga.
I'm so excited for that.
That is just like yeah.
It's beautiful.
I have not seen
like-
it.
I haven't seen that yet. No.
It's been tweeted around. It's been revealed. It's
Yeah.
freaking
I think
incredible.
I saw it and then have promptly forgotten it.
Yeah, it's
Who did the Dinosaur Lords cover? That was bloody amazing. Although I think that was the year before. Oh
Same
yeah.
guy that Victor Malone? No, that's
Oh
the...
yeah.
yeah.
Mirror
Oh,
Empire.
Yeah.
Mirror
Empire
Empire is
Ascendant.
Richard Anderson.
Yeah,
Richard
he
Anderson.
also did Dinosaur Nerds.
Did he really?
Pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Builders
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that watercolory style. I want to say
Yeah.
watercolor.
Yeah. It's almost
I mean,
impressionistic, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arty.
A lot of like
Yeah.
angles.
You are correct, Paul. Those are all the same author or cover artist. I may have nominated him for Dinosaur Lords
Yeah.
because I remember trying to look that one up.
That one did have a fantastic cover, but story.
I mean,
No
it's
words.
called Dinosaur Lords.
Yeah.
The one that I always wonder about is if you can. I mean, there's no reason, I guess, why not to do an artist when their work is in a comic. So, and also
Yeah.
with that, like between that and how would that work with graphic story? And so, if I wanted to do Dustin and Gwyn for like
Win.
Descender, the
People
Gwyn,
have
you know,
done that because
Win.
Fiona
It's
Staples
pronounced
has
Win.
been nominated.
Gwyn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does say cartoonist in the rules that you read earlier, so why
Yeah,
not?
there's no reason he couldn't be eligible.
Yeah. Fiona Staples does the artwork on Saga, and she's been nominated for Professional Artist 2 years in a row, I think.
Yeah, they can get both. It's just like you can get like best fan writer and best related work for the same thing.
Oh well, yeah, like Cameron Hurley.
Yeah,
I
Maya.
suppose if you're saying, if
Maya-
you're saying best artist, you're focusing more on the actual
Art,
visual
as
as
opposed
opposed to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
Cameron
we-
Hurley new Stars of Legion really reminds me of these Terry Pratchett covers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's similar.
Especially if you take the dust jacket off. How pretty is that?
That's cool.
Nice.
I love when a book looks good naked.
Best thing. Because you never expect it, do you? Unless someone on
No.
BookTube's already shown you, and then you look under and you're like, wow! It's great.
It's a
I
sad
always
life for
expect
most
it to be
authors.
terrible.
Their books don't look good naked.
There's a Seinfeld episode somewhere.
There's a Seinfeld episode.
So I'm wondering if it would be a good idea because everyone is identifying artists by their covers. Should there perhaps be a specific best cover illustration category for the year, or would that be too difficult? Because again, different countries, different editions, different covers, things like that. Or would it be better to just stick with best artist?
It's so easy, I think, for somebody who's spoiled and gets to see all of the covers across BookTube to be like, I would
Yeah, well-
totally be like that specific edition and that specific artist and that specific
Yeah.
cover. I don't know if that would be as accessible for somebody who's not as involved in be
Well,
overarching.
BSFA do best artwork, don't they? And it doesn't have to be, instead of best artist, it's best artwork. So it can be non-covers as well as, it's normally all covers, but last year a sculpture won. The Wasp Factory. And it was a sculpture
that installation from Worldcon.
Yes. And it was beautiful, and it was really interesting, and it was nice to see something that wasn't just a book cover win, but best artwork as opposed to best artist. At least people can see the cover and just go, that one, instead of being like, I don't know who that is. How do I know?
I love that cover, but who drew it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose best cover is probably something that's maybe best introduced for the BooktubeSFF award.
Yeah.
Covers.
I think we could totally do best cover. That would be fun.
I think
that was one of Caitlin's suggestions, yes.
Exactly.
that might happen, possibly.
Yeah.
It bothers me that they just don't list the cover artist on Goodreads or on Amazon when you go and look at the book. That always is.
Sometimes they don't even list them in the book. And that really bugs
Yeah,
me.
that's the thing that really annoys me. Like, if you don't put the cover artist on the back, that is outrageous. Like, it drives
It's
me.
like, as a publisher, wouldn't you want people to be able to look at your, to be able to, like, talk about how great this art is? Wouldn't you be able to? Wouldn't you want to, like, pimp your artist because there's someone who works for you, and if they win awards, then that is good for you as well as,
Yeah, it's like, I'm holding their art in my hands. Tell me who they are.
I think it's only common courtesy to, like, acknowledge them,
To be fair, lots of books do, or most books, I don't know.
Lots of books do. The other problem I have is, like, certain books will just put, creative team of whatever. They won't actually, like, give you any more details than that. So there's a lot of, like, team made where someone's taken the photo and then someone's come and done the text and someone's done something else to it, and you never really know who's responsible. It's just a team. So.
And a lot of hardcovers today will have the designer, the artist, where they sourced the clip art from.
Exactly. Which is a little bit like, okay.
Sometimes, happens.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because a lot of times they use photographs as the basis, especially in like romance is like obviously the most well-known example of that. But a lot of covers do use an original photograph as the like basis, and then do the Photoshop and graphic design around that. So.
Yeah.
So, like, it makes sense to acknowledge the photographer, is what I'm saying.
Which I think is a real pity, because I think it's led actually to a decline in certain artists' art. For example, the Erickson novels. In the U.S. edition started out, and they all had these beautiful wraparound Todd Lockwood covers.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah, and then I think right around book 7 or 8, they just kicked Lockwood to the curb, and they started using the Steve Stone illustrations from the UK covers, along with the UK layouts. Layouts are fine, but again, Steve Stone is just this, again, it's paste. I'm convinced that he gets so many covers. My imagination says that he gets an email or a Skype from an editor at 8 in the morning, says we need a cover by lunchtime. Here, here's what the book is, and he does it. He has hard drives full of guy with sword 1, guy with sword 2, guy with sword castle in background, burning castle in background, mountain number 3, and he just puts all this together. Boom, it's done. And they all just look very generic. Whereas, with Lockwood's covers, you could tell that he was just really putting that sort of Michael Whelan, legendary style of artistry into it. And, we're seeing, that still goes on, but I think we're seeing it less and less.
I think it makes a book so much better though when you have a cover that really represents the story. And the strange thing to me is that cover designers don't have to read the book. Most of the time, it's not part of what they have to do at all. And so you either get a really interested designer who wants to read the book to make their design good enough, and they will do that, and you can tell when they've done it because it works. Or you get a designer who's got a really competent publishing house telling them, right, we really think this needs to have this, this, and this for it to be really, on point with the story. And that works okay as well. But when someone just clip arts and stuff on, you can tell so badly. It's like, no, this doesn't fit. What is this? And I think it is part of the problem why some books get pitched really wrong.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily
as well
about
when they've got
type of-
covers that just say.
There's one thing that I really love about John Picasso, who is a very popular cover artist and a guy that I've known for many years now, and he insists on reading the book.
I think he should.
Yeah, he asks for the galleys and he reads the whole book before he does the cover for it. And he just thinks, he sees that as his basic responsibility as an artist, and just can't believe that artists would just illustrate a book without, if you have good. I'm sorry, I was just going to say, if you have good guidance, you can probably get away with it. Like I don't ask, Matt Olson to read the book before I have him do me a thumbnail. I just tell him, here's a scene, here's what she's wearing, this, that, and he does it, and he gets it pretty close, and I'm happy with it. But I'm just doing a video thumbnail for YouTube. I'm not trying to market the actual book. So if you're, I respect the artists who will read the book. I think that's
somewhere maybe if the artist is prolific enough, the editor could pick from among pre-existing pictures that were relevant-ish, because I don't know if some of the guy that we were just talking about who did all those covers, the Cameron Hurley one and the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs one really does sound like maybe that was drawn, but I don't know if were the rest of them drawn for the books, because it's just
possibly not. I don't know.
Well, the builders, they have a mouse with a sword. Not once in the whole novella does he have a sword. He has guns. And I'm like, come on, man. But it's still amazing.
I'd have to check. But what about the ancillary justice covers and ancillary mercy and all that? That picture cut into 3. I love those covers. They're not hugely relevant. It's a giant spaceship, which is definitely part of the story. But I wouldn't necessarily have thought that needed to have been told to anybody.
It probably depends on the type of book, doesn't it? What they want to go for with it.
Mm.
Yeah, the artists who did the covers for the ancillary, for the Ratch novels, they also did the cover for one of John Scalzi's latest. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very obvious that it was the same artist. It was very obviously the same art style. And it didn't look like, it's the same picture, but it was very recognizable, and it felt more like, here is a genre, here is a type of book, here is some serious space opera adventure battles for you, because you associate it with the previous title.
Yeah. Well, it's John Harris, and Ender's Game, doing the Ender's Game cover sort of made him. And so he's got that kind of, here's a spaceship, boink, there's your science, and it's a very distinctive, kind of strange style. But depending on the book, I guess his work is received well in some areas and not so much in others. I think it worked fairly well for Ann Leckie's books.
Definitely.
I did like it, yeah. But he gets absolutely hammered for his Scalzi covers. Particularly when, because he does all the Old Man's War covers in the U.S. editions are these John Harris spaceships, and particularly when Zoe's Tale came out, which is essentially kind of this YA-ish retelling of The Last Colony, very much driven by that kind of character, and you can immediately think of YA-relevant ways in which to package and market that book through the art direction, and there's a whole there's this vast presumably, teen female audience that you could reach with that book with the right marketing for you and get them into science fiction. And here you have a bright orange spaceship, and people are like, WTF? I mean, it has nothing to do with. Everyone
I have to
hated
say, I hate those covers. I refused to buy the first book in the Old Man's War series for so long, and I had about 10 people say to me, "It's so good," and I still haven't read it because I hate the covers.
I think there are aren't there new UK ones? Aren't there new UK paperback editions?
I still don't like them either. I've got that.
But they're at least better than.
I did buy it in that edition because it was better.
But they're very old school, traditional. Not the new ones, but his style is very it reminds me of old Asimov covers.
It's very much from that school of
I love those covers, but I grew up reading old science fiction, so I'm kind of biased. But I think maybe that's the audience that it appeals to, is people who go for that kind of science fiction.
Yeah, like Chris Foss, sort of these giant spaceships.
Huge, elaborate spaceships.
Huge, yeah, metal bumblebees and things. It was
All the books are
gumball
like
machines.
black with a blob in the middle.
Like, I understand
That's
why.
so trippy, retro. I love
See,
it.
I can't look at them and be happy. Like, my makes me want to die. Like, I'm like, no.
They must.
There's another Twitter feed for you, 70s sci-fi art.
They must make the marketing decisions before they do the editing, though, because I'd imagine that if somebody had thought to be like, let's market Zoe's Tale to a YA audience, it would look very different.
I don't know.
They probably just were like, it's going to go in the sci-fi section. We want it to match the sci-fi books. The grown-ups are going to buy it, and that was a decision that.
Yeah, I think that was mainly the decision. It was to have that sort of uniformity of design for all the Old Man's War books, and I think, but they did. Tor did their own YA editions of Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow. And they've done now their own YA editions of the Mistborn trilogy with different covers.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that Zoe's Tale would be a thing they could do if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I also, like, as that series has gone on, I've kind of increasingly questioned how they, like, the original decision, like, I understand why the original decision to market Old Man's War was to, market it as, like, the second coming of Heinlein, like, it's a military SF thing, but, like, as that series has gone on, and Scully is kind of, like, he's still in that vein, but he's kind of, drifting away in some ways.
I feel like he's still separated.
Yeah, I think it overall makes the marketing decisions for that series, like, as the series has developed, it's made the marketing decisions for that series seem kind of weird. Like, Zoe's Tale is the most obvious, but I think, I'm not sure that the original marketing plan for that book, the first book, ended up working out for the entire series.
All his non-Old Man's War covers are great, just Android's Dream and Lock-In and Agent to the Stars. Tor did wonderful work with those. But we're probably getting a little off topic.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah, let's.
The way these live shows go.
Maybe let's get more off topic and talk about movies and the short form.
Before we do, on the fan artists, I had a recommendation that we look at Euclase on Tumblr, EUCLASE. And that was from Renee.
It is fantastic. It is super hyper real. Paintings of digital art of like contemporary TV shows and movies and stuff. Amazing artist.
The covers conversation makes me think of that video that you did, Elizabeth, where you sorted all of your covers by how many planets were on them.
Yeah.
Nobody procrastinates like Elizabeth.
Magnificent hobby. Shush.
It is fabulous. I love watching the videos.
Yeah, but
it makes me want to do
shelf rearranging.
It makes me want to like get up and start like making my shelves dance with all the books moving along and stuff. I'm like, no, that's going to take so long.
I have elaborate plans for when I finish the writing.
I am so excited.
But I kind of need a bigger room because the space from this wall where the books are to like the other wall, well, I'm sitting down and I can reach both.
Are you legit saying we're going to need a bigger library?
Go and arrange the library.
I'm looking at this Tumblr. I can't believe those aren't like actual pictures.
I know, I thought the same thing.
It's insane.
Oh,
know how to do the screen share? I don't know how to do the screen share.
It's a little. Hold on. There should be a little thing on your. It's got a green.
There's a little thing. Is it only on mine?
Nope, I've got it.
Do you want to try it?
Yeah. Hi, you can all now see my screen.
Oh.
This is the Xena one that I'm looking at that I really like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just looking at that one.
They're rebooting that, aren't they?
Oh, look at Hamilton.
Castile from Supernatural.
Wow.
I think
This one's impressive.
Yeah.
I can't believe they're not photos.
Yeah, some of them look a lot like it.
Hyper-realist artists are incredible.
Yes. Is it a female or a male? I think it's a girl,
Renee
right?
said she, so
Renee?
I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Renee is the person who suggested it, not the person who makes it.
Oh,
I was gonna say, can you be like more annoyingly talented in like many different places?
Unless it's her secret job, I don't know.
Do you think it's her superhero identity?
Maybe.
Possible.
I mean,
oh, it's Supergirl. That one's
Yeah, that's a good one.
wow.
That's impressive. Look at the texture in her
Yeah.
clothes. Oh my god.
Yeah. Now, is she doing this? Is she digital artist, or is this all? I mean, she does this
It
Yeah.
miraculously.
says PS4 on some of them, so
good. Yeah, it's digital.
Yeah.
Okay, we've probably distracted ourselves for a while.
Okay, never
alright,
mind.
anyway.
Next category.
So we haven't talked about maybe let's talk about the best semi-prozine and best fanzine, and then we can talk about movies and TV because we'll probably get super distracted about that too.
Yeah.
I imagine. So, yeah, best semi-prozine and best fanzine. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that, and what did you nominate for best semi-prozine? I always have to look up to see what exactly fits because
Same.
it's weird with the eligibility. And it was also weird. So last year, Orson Scott Card's Intergalactic Medicine Show was nominated for best semi-prozine, but then they withdrew because they were like, actually, we should be best prozine, but best prozine doesn't exist anymore because there weren't enough eligible, things in that
like
category, so they got rid of it like 20 years ago. And it's like, well, this is all very strange.
Yeah, and it goes to best related work. As we said, it's the, oh my god, what do we do with this category?
Yes. Yes, so best semi-prozine, personally, I always have to look it up and check. Because
Yeah. It's usually subscription short story places.
There's a website that tracks who is eligible as a semi-prozine. I think they do all the work for you in contacting editors and asking their financial status and everything.
Yeah, what's the organization that runs the Nebula Awards? The Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association or Science Fiction?
WA.
It's of America, yeah.
Writers of America.
They list that information as well.
Yeah. Clark's World is semi-pro, isn't it?
Uncanny.
Uncanny
I
is
don't
semi-pro.
think Clark's World is it still eligible this year? There is one that lost its semi-prozine status this year. It might be
Time
Lightspeed,
Out?
or
Yeah.
Clark's World.
One of them.
I think it
maybe.
might be Lightspeed.
Maybe.
Yeah, it is Lightspeed. Apex Magazine, The Dark, Lightspeed, Nebula, Rift, and New Realm are no longer eligible.
Okay.
Really? Why? Like,
The company that runs them, I guess that it's done on if the editors make more than 3/4 of their income from that, I think.
Oh.
I mean, technically, I think it's a good sign. If you lose your semi-prozine status, it means you become more professional.
Yeah, it means you're
You're
leveling up.
self-sustaining, and yeah, that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because prior to last year, there was like 2 prozines that were ever eligible.
sorry, I didn't hear you, Elizabeth.
Before last year, with those all timed out last year or whatever, whatever, then I think there were only like 2 that were in that category, which was like Asimov's and I can't remember the other one.
Orson Scott Card's Intergalactic.
Oh, well,
Show.
no, but there was one other. But
Fantasy
Anyway.
and science fiction.
maybe.
Fancy science fiction. Analog is.
Analog.
Analog is, I think, still semi-pro. Is counted as a semi-pro.
Anyway.
No, it's
There's a new one that was added, but I don't really like this word
Book
Grimdark,
Smugglers.
but it's Grimdark Magazine. I like Grimdark Magazine. It's a decent site.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the Book Smugglers blog went from best fanzine up to best semi-prozine last year. So they're probably still in semi-pro now because they're a paying market for short fiction as well.
Yeah, I've got them on.
Yeah. I put Strange Horizons, Uncanny, and Book Smugglers on mine for this category.
I quite like Strange Horizons.
They're always doing good work.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, the problem for me is there's a lot of them that I'm aware of, but I try to kind of limit myself to things that I check out on a regular basis and actually read, because otherwise it kind of feels like cheating.
Uh-huh.
So I've got Book Smugglers and Uncanny.
The thing that I always feel guilty about with this is that for a lot of things that would be best semi-prozine, I actually primarily listen to the audio versions of stories. So a lot of them have like podcasts, and you can download that. Well, I downloaded it to a podcast app, and then just listen to the story. So it's like, I'm not really reading this as a magazine. I'm actually consuming it as an audiobook, but I know that's where it's eligible, and this is kind of weird, but whatever.
Well, they still did the work in like editing it into like a collection, I guess. You know, they chose those works. They edited. That gives it its, you know, recurring frequency and whatever.
And the Uncanny podcast specifically has excellent interviews at the end. Just really good interview questions.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Most of the ones that are
Uncanny interviews on the in the actual magazines. So
most of the ones that are best semi-prozine have some sort of podcast associated with them, and even some things that are best fanzine will have some sort of that are like paying markets will have some sort of podcast associated with them, and it depends on the podcast what exactly they have. But a lot of them have stories, and some of them have interviews or essays or whatever being read as well.
Did they have like regular hosts who do it then, like the same host or?
Yes and no. It depends on which one you're listening to.
I've
Like
never
Clark's
listened
World.
to the podcast versions of it all.
I know Clark's World has like a couple people who pretty regularly do it, and their format is kind of they read the story and then they do a little bit of commentary and discussion on the story.
Okay.
I think like Beneath Ceaseless Skies is another one that I listen to a fair amount, and they tend to have a different person for each. They tend to have different narrators for each story, or they like have a rotation of narrators. Like they have several people that narrate. So it depends on which one you're looking at, I guess. But yes, and anyone have anything they want to root for in best fanzine in particular, which is basically turned into blogs. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be, but that's basically what it is.
I think this is the last year for A Dribble of Ink to be eligible.
Didn't they close down?
They closed down in 2015, but they have enough content to be eligible.
I'm writing that down.
I think that could stand to do pretty well in the nominations. File 770 will turn up.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. They did valiant work last year.
Rocket Stack Link, which is a blog that rates short fiction. I've had a lot of people recommend it to me, and I've heard that it's eligible in fanzine, so that's where I put it this year.
Yeah, a lot of mine I've just nominated people for fan writer because it feels more like a general thing. Like I read their blogs sometimes, but not all the time, and then I follow them on Twitter and I listen to interviews, and it's more about the person than the site. My last one, apart from File 770, was Lady Business, which is a site that I found out because Renee is on it. But that's again that's a fairly recent find. So,
I found that most of my fanzine type things, like basically blogs, all of the smaller ones that I was reading have become writers at Tor, or like Barnes and Noble, or Waterstones, and are no longer blogging individually. And I haven't found any small blogs to take their place, or I haven't had the time to find them out, because what would have been my blog reading time is now my YouTube watching time.
Right.
So yeah. We'll just take over that section ourselves.
Is SF Mistress Works eligible?
I believe so, yes.
That would be a good one. Ooh.
I like Elitist book reviews. They were nominated the last few years. And I like their website. And I don't know where Fantasy Faction would go, but I do like Fantasy
fan work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're fanzine because they're not earning tons of money from it, are they?
Not really.
Can't imagine they are.
So that's probably a good one.
Great. You guys want to move on and talk about the dramatic long form and dramatic short form? Is there anything else? Are there any other categories we haven't talked about? Or is that pretty
We
much?
did podcast, didn't we?
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't do fan cast or fan writer yet.
Okay. Maybe fan cast and fan writer quickly. Well, we were
Everybody
kind of
nominate
talking
all of
about.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
There, we're done. Next.
Nice.
Movies and TV shows. What did you? The Martian, obviously.
Star Wars.
Yeah,
Star
the
Wars.
movie.
Yeah.
I think last year when we did this live show, I think Brock made a good point. This is sort of the most pointless category of the Hugos because the movie industry has its awards
Right.
that have actual prestige, and this is just something for the fans to kind of tick their boxes. But I think the finalists in this one are going to be pretty obvious. We're going to have The Martian, Star Wars, Mad Max,
Fury Road. Yeah.
and probably
Jurassic World.
Ex Machina, and maybe one of the Marvels, whichever. I don't know.
Oh yeah, one of the Captain Americas or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought Inside Out might make it.
Inside Out might make it, yeah. So those 5 would probably be your finalists, I think.
What are the odds that some full seasons, like miniseries, like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, or maybe the entire first season of Jessica Jones might make it?
Doubtful.
I think we would be more likely to see individual episodes of those shows in the short form.
It's usually a short episode, the one episode that gets nominated, so it's like it splits the vote for the long season. So
because I think wasn't the last time that we had a full season nominated, was that like the first season of Game of Thrones or something like that? Because that's kind of atypical in terms of how big it is and how big it is within the science fiction fandom, because we've been reading the books for so long.
As far as movies, Ex Machina was definitely my favorite science fiction movie last year. And Mad Max, technically, and the difficulty of them filming that, amazing. It's just amazing. There's a reason why they won all the Oscars for all the technical achievements. So, this actual story, though.
Claire, how long have you been following the Hugos? Your back knowledge of what has won is astounding.
No, I'm really nerdy about it as well. Well, yeah, I mean, I just my first massive science fiction and fantasy serious novel crush. I was 12, I read Dragon Riders of Fern. It says the first woman to win the Hugo and the novel and the Nebula in the same year, and I was like, so the Hugo is an important thing. So hey, there you go.
It's amazing how just one thing on a cover when you're a kid completely changes something. That's the same reason that I was like, the Hugo Awards, just because I read some Isaac Asimov novel when I was a kid. And it said Hugo Award on the front, so I've always known Hugo Award, very important. Even though nowadays lots of people are like, not so important, really.
I will say one thing about the best dramatic category is that sometimes the literary science fiction field can make its taste known, and it's pretty nice how we'll kind of go against the grain of popular tastes. The very first Worldcon I ever went to was Baltimore, 1983, and that was fascinating year because that was first off, that was the year that the Hugo banquet was a big crab dinner, right? Because Baltimore. And so they had these. I'm looking for mine. I still have it, but we had these commemorative crab mallets, these wooden crab mallets. They were stamped with And at some point when the actual Hugo ceremony was happening, and I take full credit for this, people started using their mallets on the tables in lieu of applause, and this apparently caused such a racket downtown. You could hear it blocks away, and Baltimore police came out, and it was amazing. But the other thing that was notable about that year was that Blade Runner, which was a movie that was a complete flop when released, critical and commercial disaster, won Best Dramatic Presentation over E.T., which had spent the entire previous year taking over the world. And since then, now Blade Runner is this acknowledged sort of underappreciated classic that's gone on. And I think that it was the literary science fiction fans who saw what that was about and kind of kept that movie, having, it just helped to build the respect that it got later on. And so if there's any way in which, literary SF tastes in movies have gone on to be influential, I think that's an example you can point to. So there's
I
more.
don't think that's going to happen this year.
But there's more interesting. There's independent SF films now that are just premiering on VOD and on Netflix, and there's a lot that is going on that is now not just these big special effects blockbusters. And I want to try. I'm going to see about doing what I can to encourage people to watch a lot of those, because it's this year we've had High Rise has just opened in the UK, and there's a wonderful movie I think coming out very soon called The Lobster, which is this black comedy dystopia, in which it's set in this future where, like, if you don't find if you fail to find a romantic partner, you go to this institute, and they will try to help you out, and if you fail to do it, you will be turned into an animal. And it's got Colin Farrell in it, and it's very bizarre. And it's an extremely bizarre film, but it's funny, and it's in a surreal kind of way, and warm. And this is the sort of thing this is like independent science fiction, speculative fiction that no studio would ever touch. But movies like these are suddenly happening, and it's wonderful. So because I think there's independent distribution, and it's easier to, and you can get your films crowdfunded, and strange stuff is being made now. So. So I'd love to see films like that, I think the literary SF fandom would embrace movies like these.
Yeah. There was a movie called Circle that was on Netflix. It was made last year, and I really enjoyed that. That was very interesting. It was more of a indie film. And then there was another one as well. I'm not 100% sure it was last year, but it was a camera that took pictures one day in the future, and you had to, stand in that position to make sure to get that picture taken. I forget the name of it though. But those are some great movies I watched recently that are indie sci-fi.
Have we talked at all about comics?
Oh no,
we're talking about things that have their own awards that maybe the Hugo doesn't matter so much for them.
Wait, so are we doing TV, or are we?
Oh, do you have something you want to talk about for TV in particular?
For short form?
Yeah.
Actually, I put in Hard Home, which is the episode 9 Big Battle episode of Game of Thrones this season, and I put in Husbands of River Song, which was a Doctor Who Christmas special this year. But it's just really, I've been very remiss in TV, so I was hoping that people had things that they particularly liked that I could prioritize.
I know I put in a couple episodes of Jessica Jones that I really liked, but I don't remember what else I put right now. But I really like Jessica Jones.
Notice I'm hearing people are making a little bit of buzz on Twitter about nominating Hamilton for long form.
I've heard about that, and I think it's a really interesting debate to be having as to whether that counts as speculative, right? Because it's all about what we decide that it.
Would it count as?
Decide that it is.
Would it count as alternate history? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, well, Renee over at Fangirl Happy Hour was saying it would count maybe as Afrofuturism, which I've only read like one or two things that would count as that, so I don't really know. But it's just. It's so full of anachronisms that it would count in the same way as, I guess, steampunk does, where, it's not really historical. No one thinks that steampunk is historical.
Yeah, so it's alternate, yeah.
And if Neil Stephenson gets to count, the Baroque cycle as sort of science fiction, I think we can keep this in.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that I can actually think straight and logically where Hamilton is concerned. So.
We'll leave that one to the Hugo committee to have fun with.
Yeah. Well, people are not.
It counts. That's the rule. The rule is it counts as sci-fi and fantasy for the purposes of the Hugos if there are enough nominations, because people were certain groups of people were complaining a lot about If You Were a Dinosaur, My Love, which is a poem that was nominated for short story a few years ago, did not win, but certain groups of people were really complaining that it wasn't science fictional enough to be nominated.
I really liked If It Was a If You Were a Dinosaur, My Love.
Oh yeah, I
it was
voted for that.
It was lovely, yeah.
I wonder what the debates on the Hugo committee are like for what's eligible and what's eligible and what, because I imagine those must go on forever. Like that must be a slog fest to go through and just determine eligibility for everything that gets nominated.
Oh yeah.
That sounds hard.
Yeah,
It tends to be for
but with more voting.
Yeah.
it tends to be for format problems more than content, because I don't think that the rules are pretty clear that they can't editorialize for content. They can't make that decision of whether something counts as sci-fi. But they've had issues with format before. The Lady Astronaut from Mars, which is a short story by Mary Robinette Kowal that won last year, first came out in 2013, but it wasn't eligible because it was in audio format and there was a stage direction, so that made it eligible for Best Presentation Short Form according to the Hugo committee. But obviously everybody who nominated it for Best Short Story, so it was disqualified. And then the next year it came out in an actual paper format and it was eligible and it won. So sometimes the voting rules are so weird. And I must also, my day job includes elections, so that's why I'm really nerdy about it. But yeah.
There's no stress involved there at all.
Shall we do graphic works while we're talking about
Yes.
picture-y things?
Let's do graphic works. And then I think we've covered all the categories, I think. Maybe we'll think about something else.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, as Bree mentioned, this is also not the most relevant since the graphic works have the Eisner Awards, which is a way more comprehensive and well-known, and I think it's a lot bigger award.
Yeah.
But the Hugos serve for a community to celebrate its favorites,
Yeah.
It's like the BooktubeSFF Awards. Doesn't necessarily mean anything to anyone except us. But they mean enough to us. It's a community celebrating its favorites, not necessarily an industry celebrating its best.
I think the BooktubeSFF Awards for graphic novels is those four are going to be pretty popular for the Hugos as well. Descender is great and Nimona is awesome. So the other two
I just
people love.
bought Descender yesterday, so I want to read that this week.
I'm so excited for you, Claire. I love Descender.
It's really nice.
I would be incredibly surprised if Nimona didn't make it.
Nimona was shortlisted for an Audrey Norton this year, so graphic work in that category. So
I am nominating that because I did not expect it to be actually serious and full of depth and stuff because it was so cute, and then it broke me a bit. So
I feel like most of my favorites for SFF kind of comics came from Image. I feel like that's been the trend for me for the last couple of years. So
Definitely.
Descender,
Same for me.
Planet,
Odyssey.
Lots of good stuff coming from them.
I mean, basically,
oh my God, Odyssey!
It's Ms. Marvel on my shelf right now, so.
Miss Marvel, I think, is going to have an issue because they have 3 volumes that are eligible, 3 volumes that came out in the same year, and that's I feel like people. I feel like it's going to split its vote and not succeed because of that.
So Crushed is my favorite Miss Marvel, if it counts. That's the new one, the 3rd.
There's a 4th out now, and it came out.
No!
It came out the last month of 2015. It came out
did it?
in December, yeah.
Yeah, so 2, 3, and 4 are eligible, and my wallet can't keep up with that.
Yeah, they dropped a whole bunch. Well, I think it's because I think they needed to get 3 out before Civil War started or something like that, so that no one had a really accelerated timeline happen. I think it's because of Civil War. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I'm not, a Marvel expert, so.
we will quote you on that. We will make sure everyone knows.
I'm sure that
Nicole said this was why.
Mm-hmm. What about the Sculptor? Have any of you guys read that one?
I'm like 50 pages into that.
I've read it. It wasn't my favorite, but I think
it wasn't my favorite either. but loads of people told me it was amazing before I read it, so that's why I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go into this. But then, like, from the amount of buzz people were giving it, I thought it was going to be like incredible and really worth like reading, and it sounded as though loads of people were going to like nominate it for things, and then I read it and was like, no. But it was okay, but that was about it.
So what usually wins? Do volumes usually win of graphic novels, or do more completed works win?
Volumes.
Yeah, like trades.
Okay.
Yeah.
You kind of oust yourself, I think, as far as that goes, because you're not going to have a single issue win most times because they're so short, and you're not going to have an entire work because for the most part they run for years or for at least 1 or 2 years. So to have an entire series go, if it's that good, it's probably getting a nomination, which would exclude it from, I think, the complete work being eligible.
Yeah. So
Well, or a single title, like Nimona is a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then again,
the way it works is that if any part of the serialized work has been nominated in a past year, then it's ineligible. So if Nimona was originally published as a webcomic, so if the webcomic had been nominated for Best Graphic Work in a previous year, which it could have been, it probably would have been eligible, then the full work wouldn't be eligible this year. It's that serialization rule.
Digger won back in 2013, I think, and that was an ongoing webcomic for 8 years. It was the complete volume was eligible in the year of its completion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
well, yeah.
So it does happen, but
It's rare.
yeah.
I think it would happen more for, it would have to be something that's really long running like that, because for something like, for something that's like maybe a slightly bigger than a single volume of a graphic novel, but that's, you know, maybe like one of those 100-page, 200-page graphic novel that's an actual novel, you wouldn't have the following of something that's been going out for a long time, and, you know, similar to the best presentation short form where you get Doctor Who being nominated a lot, you've got this continuation of fandom where people have been loving, say, Ms. Marvel or something like that for a long time, and so, or Saga, and they want to keep nominating it.
Well,
It depends on the following of the author, just like with anything else, like, you know, because you get a Neil Gaiman graphic novel and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah. Or like I know the graphic format of the Dresden Files, the like graphic novels of the Dresden Files. At least one of those got nominated, maybe more. So like stuff like that. Also, I feel like books that are turned into a graphic work have a better chance in the Hugos because people who really like that book series might nominate the graphic work as well.
Is manga eligible? Just a random question. I don't actually read manga, but I don't know.
I believe science fiction manga would be eligible. It would be with the whole translation thing, though, so it would be eligible in the year it was translated, which could also be an issue because, like something like Attack on Titan, when they put out volumes of that, they'll put out like 4 at a time. So it's the same thing as like what I was talking about with Ms. Marvel, where they end up splitting up.
Yeah, I haven't actually read like any manga, but I just had a thought. I was like, is that a thing?
I'm pretty sure it would be eligible, but I think
fit somewhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would be eligible in graphic work, but I think because of the way a lot of translators will just like drop a whole bunch because it's already out, so they'll just drop a whole bunch whenever they get them when they get a whole bunch done.
Yeah.
And that depends on the publisher. And I'm gonna move because you are getting glare.
I have kind of a tangential question. So, just talking about nomination and how that affects full series eligibility, was Discworld ever nominated individually for like an individual title?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So it would not be eligible for the full work.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, Pratchett turned it down because he was already, you know, his career was made at the time, and he turned it down. And kind of.
Yeah, he was going to be nominated for Going Postal and turned it down.
That was very good, though.
Yeah.
He had that whole talk about how he could never enjoy the Hugos if he was up for the award and had to sit through the ceremony, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so. I'd been seeing rumors of people wanting to nominate it online, and I was like, I don't think it's eligible, but
Well, also,
no, they could
you know,
only. They could do his non-fiction. Was it his non-fiction? Slip of the Keyboard or one of those, or the Long Earth series.
Well, Shepherd's Crown should be eligible this year.
yeah, I just
Yeah,
was seeing
Shepherd's
people
Crown.
talking about nominating the entirety of Discworld, and I didn't.
I don't
think that was.
I don't
Yeah,
think
that's.
they can.
Unless they do a special one like they did for Asimov.
Which they probably will at some point. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, I fully expect to see something in the way of a Pratchett tribute
Certainly.
at the ceremony this year. But the other thing is that, unlike, for example, Wheel of Time, you know, Discworld is a series of standalone novels. They're linked indefinitely. And there is a, you know, I think there's a narrative continuity there, but mostly it's just, you know, Terry being funny about whatever it is he cares to be about funny about in that particular book. So it's 40 books, and it's not like one book broken up into 40 chunks.
Wait, didn't he die before last Hugo's?
Yeah.
Or at least before last.
I remember deaths being in the.
It was like
beginning
last
part.
April, so it was like before.
Yeah, they
the
had a
last
tribute
Worldcon.
to him at the last Hugo's.
Yeah. So there won't be a tribute this year.
Okay.
There might be a nomination, but they
that's
they
right,
did
yeah.
tributes.
I mean, yeah, there's always a tribute. He just won't be in it.
Yeah.
I think we've like managed to not talk about actual like novels.
Yeah, I thought we were going to
Save it.
get to that last, right? Save the best for last.
That's fine.
Oh, I thought Nicole was just intentionally trying to steer us away from it.
So did I.
Oh, no, not my plan at all, sorry. Actually, I just didn't really think about it. But yeah, we can talk about this novel. What do you guys... I don't know, I think it was a pretty good year for novels overall. I think I'll be interested to see what gets nominated. I'll be interested to see if Seven Eves gets nominated, because that's one that like a lot of my friends who aren't super readers and aren't super active in like online book communities have read, but there was like such a mixed reaction to it, because if you just read the blurb on the back of that book, then the first 2/3 of the book are not what you were expecting to get. So like there's like such a mixed reaction to that of people that I know who aren't like who don't like read reviews beforehand.
Yeah, I feel like if you're a Stevenson fan, that was a great Stevenson book. If you're not, that was a baffling novel. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I love it, but I've read all his other books, so it made total sense.
That was my first Stevenson, so.
I don't know, I mean, that's maybe a little more accessible than Anathem.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
General reader, yeah.
I mean, it was my first Stevenson, but then I had this awareness of like Neil Stevenson is both a big
that's
someone
true.
who will mess with your head with the sci-fi, and also like someone you can trust as a writer because he's been around and done some great things. I
don't know. I think it's just
not with the endings.
the split. You couldn't do that split in the middle, like if you weren't Neil Stevenson. Like there's very few people who can get away with a novel structured in that way because it's just weird. And so I don't know that it would make it, although I'm nominating it.
Yeah, even then I think I would have preferred it without the last couple hundred pages.
Yeah.
Like I wish that had been its own book.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said about it. Exactly what I said.
I think a lot of people felt that way, yeah.
I loved seeing the like how he figured out the swingy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
I just wanted more of
seeing
that.
it. I just think it should have been its own book, yeah.
Yeah, it deserved its own book. I think, deserved to be at least as well developed. But now I think Stevenson has just gotten himself into this realm of every book has to be this 900-page bullet stopper, and that's just how he writes now. Everything is a tome.
But I would have read another 300 pages of that second half.
Yeah.
If it had been its own book and we had separated them. And then they'd marketed the first book as the first half of the book, or first 2/3 of the book.
Yeah.
Which is,
Well, like Connie Willis did Blackout and All Clear a few years back, and that was also in two halves. Also, if you read the first one and not the second one, that was not like a complete thing. You would miss something. But that was, she's Connie Willis. She can do that.
Well, it's not like Stevenson hasn't done that. Like the Baroque cycle, depending on how you read it, is 3 books, 5 books, or 9 books. So, have fun with that.
What else was good that came out this year? I liked Aurora. That's Kim Stanley Robinson.
Really like that.
Yeah, that's one that I think will
to
do.
read.
I think that'll have a good showing.
Has it been nominated yet for any other award?
It is not on the Hugo Nebula shortlist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really surprised about that.
Yeah.
Well,
You
I
already
mean, I'm
mentioned
assuming
Barry
Ancillary Mercy
Wing.
will be on there, just to completely...
It was such a good ending.
I know.
It was such a good ending.
Yeah.
I think the 5th season will definitely be on there.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah,
thinking
I'm
about
voting for the 5th season.
The season is a safe bet. Ancillary Mercy might make it.
Traitor Barry Cormorant.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. Well, it deserves
That's
it.
a lot of books. That's like 5 we've just picked out and gone, they'll all definitely be on there.
Yeah.
But I feel like, sometimes you kind of just know because of like the amount of reaction just engenders people reading more. Like I wouldn't have necessarily picked up the Traitor Baru Cormorant, but I was just like really interested in the reaction that it was getting from different people. And I really didn't like the ending of that because I was like, no, that hurts. But it does deserve awards in terms of like the writing of most of it.
You're not supposed to be happy with the ending of that.
No, but I mean, I feel like there was a bit of like for me, the POV didn't really work. Like, I felt like there was a bit of withholding from the reader in the POV itself, which I didn't feel like was done very well in that one. But I did really enjoy reading all of it, even though I kind of had to take breaks from it because it was like a bit much.
Actually, I agree with you, Claire. I really just like that the author like intentionally withheld information that the main character would clearly have known.
Yeah.
I feel like Planetfall does that a lot better with the like withholding of like the extent of the mental illness because you can kind of understand that.
Yeah,
Right.
but she's like lying to herself as well
Yeah.
as to you.
I feel like that was very well done.
I don't think Planetfall is going to make the ballot, but I wish it would because I really liked it.
Yeah, I nominated.
It's been reasonably well read, though. I mean, it could.
I nominated
Could
it.
have
I
enough.
just-
Yeah.
What I liked about Planetfall is that it felt very like a kind of like traditional, even though it had this like mental illness thing that you don't really see a lot, it did have this feel for me of like golden age classic science fiction because it does focus very much on the character rather than anything else. And so like at the end it's like Day of the Triffids. Like you don't get to know what happens to the world. You get to know what happens to these specific people.
Yeah. It had almost an air of like the kind of structure I think you would see in some of the Hainish cycle books, like where the story very much ends with a character, but it's tries to kind of cover enough of the world to give you a sense of what's going on, but enough of the character to really get you emotionally engaged.
I'll be curious to see if Uprooted makes it or not, just because some people love that book, and other people just absolutely hate Uprooted.
Yeah,
And
it's been
very
fascinatingly
interesting.
divisive, hasn't it?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of writers that have read the book love it. Like I see on my Goodreads, like writers love it for some reason.
That's the thing with the Hugos is sometimes things surprise you because it's actually such a small core of people who nominate. You kind of almost can know who's going to pick what from a good chunk of those people.
Mm-hmm.
So if a work is popular amongst the Hugo group, then it's going to get nominated quite easily, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Not like they all know each other or like are all talking.
Well, yeah, I mean.
Well, there's just that group of people who are that involved in fandom and in the Worldcons in particular.
That's it. It's just like the SFWA, like the Nebulas and stuff.
Yeah.
Like amongst the writers, like you said, like Uprooted has seemed to be quite popular, which was a good indicator really early on that it was going to go for a Nebula because it's a writers' award.
Yeah. Oh, another one that I don't think will make it, but that I would like to see on there is Signal to Noise.
Yeah, good, but I don't think popular
Well,
enough.
no, but
But yeah, it was lovely.
What do you guys think? Do you think Radiance will make it? I
No, I don't
think
think so.
so. Okay.
I don't think so.
Thought it was worth asking about, or House of Shattered Wings, which, as we mentioned, just won
the House of
Yes.
Shattered Wings, and also maybe Sorcerer to the Crown are books that are kind of fan favorites.
Yeah.
Or Grace of Kings. We haven't mentioned that either. Sorry.
And Grace,
yeah.
Grace of Kings also has, I think, earlier on, that was one of the ones from the Nebula shortlist that I said I thought might do well.
After having read Illuminate for the BooktubeSFF Awards, I am thinking of adding it to my ballot. I really liked it.
I really like that one.
I don't think it'll get on the shortlist, but I really
Let
like
me try.
I mean, that one does have, it has a big fan community. I don't know if they cross over with the
That's the thing.
Hugo
I don't know.
nominating.
It's
Yeah.
fan
Yeah.
community and the Hugo
it's difficult
fan
to
community.
say. It's difficult to say because. Sorry,
Yeah.
not to talk about things that we have been avoiding studiously, but
Yeah.
the kind of like the spread of like who votes and stuff is probably going to change quite a bit this year because a lot of people got voting memberships last year and voted for the first time, and that is probably going to have some kind of an effect this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes things.
We've got
Voting
the biggest
is
nominating pool so far, I think, ever.
Right.
Do we want to talk about the controversial stuff and what effect you guys think that'll have this year? I kind of think it'll be less pronounced this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, they all
Twitter
got
has been quieter so far.
they got spanked so hard last year that there's really not a whole lot of latitude they have to, and everything they're doing now just seems like this sort of passive aggressive concession almost. So I just don't even.
Yeah, they've made that selection process a lot more open, and now they've got a list of stuff that they are recommending people check out, and it's got like a whole bunch of things on that would get nominated anyway and have been getting nominated for several years. So
yeah.
Well, I think in the grand scheme of things, it was never really the sad puppy contingent that was as noise-making as it was very much the rabid puppy contingent that wanted to take over. And I don't know that they have as many people who are going to follow over from that year.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my sister.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're pretty well burned out in terms of to whatever degree they can. Certainly will not be able to make the kind of mess that they made last year.
We say this confidently now, 2 weeks before.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless they're just sort of doing everything, they have these amazing secret plans that they're fomenting on the download. But I just don't.
The download is not really something that they do, is it?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's not exactly what they're known for. I'm sure that the people who are bitter from last year are still just off being bitter. I mean,
I wonder if it's going to reflect the 2014 awards more, where there will still be an effect, but it won't be the whole ballot like it was. Like you'll still see the odd obvious nomination, but it won't be everything in a whole category.
Like, in terms of what happened in 2014, I think that's totally fair, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're allowed to get together with your friends and say, let's all vote for this one work if you really want to. But, yeah, I don't think it'll be the same, like, the entire short list. I don't think it'll be the same level of effect. And And I think if it goes back down, goes to like the same level as what happened in 2014. Personally, I think that's fine, and I think that's totally valid in your.
Yeah, the process
What
that they
was
have
the-
this year is fairly. The process that they have this year for selecting things and like recommending things is fairly legit. I don't know what the rabbit puppies are doing, and I don't think they're as big a number, so it might be less of a problem. But the sad puppies, they're just doing a recommendation list, but they're just being really bitter and angry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that post from
Yes.
just the one I'm talking about.
Sarah Hoyt.
Sarah Hoyt. I read that and I was
boy.
like, oh. And I felt part of my whole heart just felt bad for her. Like,
Yeah, like she never got enough
Secondhand
hugs when she was
embarrassment.
growing up or something. You know, it's like you just never got hugged. You need hugs. A puppy or something. Yeah.
a puppy.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah, like an actual
And this has
But-
come up in the chat and also slightly related, is authors declining things or saying they'll decline things. Because a couple of authors have been asked to be taken off of the sad puppy list, and a couple of authors, like I know John Scalzi in particular, said, I will decline any award any nomination that I'm given because I don't really feel that I need it at this point in my career, so just don't nominate me. And, stuff of that nature.
I mean, when you get like a 12-book deal in one go, you kind of like that's kind of the fair thing to do.
Yeah.
I think Mary Robinette, she was so involved in the Hugos last year, she didn't want anything.
Oh
any
yeah,
of
because
that
she
involvement.
offered to pay for people's voting rights if they wanted to vote because of the controversy. So I feel like that's fair enough. Like people were accusing her of like paying votes for months and months and
So
months.
she's
Like, no.
said that if she gets nominated, she'll decline because of all that.
Oh,
so
that's a good.
it's separate.
Well, guys, don't nominate Midnight Hour. Use one of your best short story slots to nominate something else.
Yeah.
Because I nominated that and I forgot about it.
But I still really like everything she does, which makes me sad.
Well, that's
Well,
why
there will
she
be
can
other years.
vote for her in the BooktubeSFF awards.
Precisely.
We'll
Yes.
celebrate her for that.
And we're going to have an interview with her next weekend, or I'm going to do an interview with her next weekend.
I'm so excited to see that.
Join us for that.
And we will present her with her BooktubeSFF Award potato at that time.
Now you have to actually do that. You have to send a potato to all of the winners, or all the nominees.
No, they get tiny plastic trophies. Only Andy Weir gets the.
Yeah, only Andy Weir gets the potatoes, I'm afraid.
What was it that made you all crack up? A bed of potatoes. It was a trophy on a bed of potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
Gorgeous.
But yes. Any other thoughts you guys want to throw out there? Or you want to probably about time to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm tempted this year to call it for the 5th season.
Really?
So I'm gonna call the Nebula at least, and
Oh, the Nebula, yeah, maybe.
but I think that it will do very well at the Hugos. I mean, I think it will definitely be shortlisted. But I think it's the likeliest Nebula winner at this point.
I don't know. I think given how the 5th season didn't do like super great in the Goodreads Choice Awards, so I would be a little bit surprised if it did as well in the Hugos. Like obviously all the awards are a little bit different, and they have a little bit of a different overlap. But
Very
I'm just
different
not sure,
demographic, I think.
I'm just not sure that the 5th season has enough broad appeal that enough people will have read it.
That's kind of what I
Going
thought.
in.
But
Yeah. Well, you
Like,
could have said the same thing about Three Body Problem when you don't,
That's
In
definitely
terms of
not.
general accessibility. I mean, you
That
never know
was
how these things will go, really.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, we're not going to see. What was the sequel called to the Three Body Problem?
The Dark Forest.
The Dark
Oh
Forest.
my
That's not
Not going to make it, is it?
not going to repeat the.
No. I didn't like the Three Body Problem at all, so I was like the only person in the world. So I didn't go for the second one.
Well, you might not be the only person in the world.
Hey, Pierce Brown was huge, and he is.
Oh,
huge
yeah.
right now. And so Golden Sun, maybe? I don't know.
the YA Hugo crossover is not huge.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So side note, Golden Sun also made the Rabbit Puppy list.
Did it?
Oh,
Crazy.
I'm looking at it now
That's-
because we were talking about it.
kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Bless you. Thank you for taking that upon yourself so that we don't have to do it.
Yeah, I think you're taking one for the team. Yeah.
Well,
I
mostly
actually
I
really,
wanted
really
to look
like
because
children's
they've got
songs.
it.
What breed?
Oh, I wanted to look at the sad puppy list because I had thought that they'd put something crazy on there. I was seeing something.
Oh no, it's
On
huge.
Twitter
It's
the
like
other
the
days.
longest list.
Oh no, their short story they have on their short story. Space Raptor butt invasion.
They said they were putting everything that was on the suggestions, so it's anything that anyone had commented. So I believe maybe somebody.
No, this is Rabid Puppies. The one they still have a slate, and on their slate is Space Raptor butt invasion.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I saw that the other day, and I just had the biggest eye roll. Like, if there was any doubt that the Rabid Puppies are filled with like 12-year-old humor,
We should all.
you don't have to doubt it anymore.
I don't know. I kind of want to read that based on the
Yeah,
text.
Is it being
Yeah, I
published by
have no
Castalia
illusions that it would be award-worthy fiction, but it could.
It's Amazon Digital Services.
We've got to
Wait,
nominate.
is that a Chuck Tingle book?
It could be entertaining. I believe that could be entertaining.
Impregnated by the gay dinosaur from Mars.
Yeah. I think it might be that same guy.
I love that guy.
Speaking of,
Sometimes you just pick up a book with a nice spaceship on the cover, and it turns out to be gay dinosaur porn on Mars.
speaking of 12-year-old humor, Hello from the Magic Tavern is amazing. The podcast Hello from the Magic Tavern. Absolutely love it. Just throwing it out there. People need to listen to it.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tea and Jeopardy was put on that Sad Puppies list, and then they said, please no. And the Sad Puppies are equating, we don't want to be on this list with, we don't want anyone to like buy or consume our media because.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Oh, Sarah Hoyt.
I know, it's like 12-year-old like.
Yeah, speaking of 12-year-old.
Oh.
But Tea and Jeopardy will probably make it on the ballot again, and that should be
I'd
there.
expect.
That's lovely.
Libby Stevenson in the chat has said she thinks the Space Raptor story was a vaginal fantasy read. Who knew that the rabid puppies were into Felicia Day?
Excellent.
Wow, now that you guys mentioned that, I remember that.
In fairness, who isn't into Felicia Day? Although I would
like a Bonnie pick. It sounds like one of the ones Bonnie would have chosen.
I don't know. As far as actual stuff that I will be nominating, or that I have considered nominating, I expect that Ben Teal probably make it because that's eligible this year.
Yeah.
Henrik Steeman will probably have a good showing. I don't know.
And the Pauper Prince by
Pauper Prince.
That one's got some steam.
Mm-hmm.
I just looked up the cover for Space Raptor, but this is the most ridiculous thing ever.
I have risky.
Are you going to try out your screen share function with us?
That will be the one thing that everyone remembers from this.
Sure. I'm just on Goodreads because I just wanted to see what it was. Oh, God. The problem with this is that I am a tab hoarder and I have so many tabs open.
Are you serious?
You guys, I'm Googling this on someone else's computer.
It is the Chuck Tingle.
But you did log out of his account, right? So hopefully it'll be on his search results.
Yep.
If the NSA ever checks that computer out, they won't.
If the NSA ever takes that computer out, Claire is in trouble because she is in a different country.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's not stopped the NSA before.
I'm not saying anything on that because it's probably rampant internet safety.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know where we go from here.
You know what? I think that's it now.
Yeah, I think we pretty much just sort of
Just
capped it out.
Fade
with that.
out on a shot of that cover.
Well, I thought Joe Steele was hot. Boy.
Oh.
All right, so yeah, so that's pretty much it. Maybe we'll do another one of these whenever the nominees are actually announced, which we don't know when that is yet, apparently. Yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts before I take us off?
No, just
Go nominate.
no thoughts, not at all. I have zero.
Go nominate. You have 5 days left,
Yes.
including all of you up in here with me who are
Yes.
who are procrastinators.
Got to do that this weekend. Busy
Trying
weekend.
to imagine how many books I can read in 5 days.
No
Doing
sleeping
fire.
for you.
All right, so with that, I'm going to take us offline. So,
Okay.
bye everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.